All right, I'm going to review the brain synapse disorder and teenage mind project that you'll be working on. So if you have questions over what should be in the project, you can read the instructions again, or you can come back and watch this video. Um, okay, so let's go over the learning objectives that we've already kind of done to help you with this. So remember this, if yours is 2025, remember this happened when we had a week off because of snow when we did e-learning. So what we've done is we've gone over the parts of the nervous system, which are kind of extra compared to this, but it's important that you understand how the brain fits into the whole nervous system. We went over synapses in depth. So there's a video on synapses, and then we went over brain parts in depth. You can go back and watch that. So if you don't have a grasp over this, which is perfectly okay, but you need to go back and watch those videos. Okay, we need to watch those videos or find another resource that you can look at those. Okay, for your project, you're going to pick a disorder or a drug that you want to go over and that you want to become an expert on in terms of the influence they have on synapses, on parts of the brain, and how they may deal differently in the teenage brain as opposed to the adult brain. You have to pick something, and we've done this before I left, that relates to you and your age group. Okay. So we've done the parts of the brain, and I want you to be looking at these as you are developing your Google Slides project. Okay. So we've talked about parts of the brain. We've gone over synapses in depth. This number 3 is kind of what you're doing now. You're going to be looking at medications and drugs and their effective behavior on brain health. We've looked at teenage brain. You may be looking at a disorder that is going, and you're going to look at how that changes the parts of the brain and how the synapses fire. You may be looking at a disorder and then medication used for that disorder, how the disorder changes the brain, how the disorder changes synapses, and then how medication for that disorder changes the synapses and changes the brain to decrease the effects of that disorder. So think about what we've learned and what we focused on, brain parts and synapses. That's your big emphasis, okay? And how those influence behavior. Okay, so again, we're talking about the nervous system because the nervous system influences behavior. And then number 5 is to give the speech, and that's going to be the second part. And the speech for this project is just as important as the information that you are collecting on the disorder or the drug or the medication. Okay. So we are really going to put an emphasis this time on improving your speaking skills. Okay. Improving your speaking skills. So you will see that once you have your Google Slides done, we're going to place myself and Bodhi are going to place a great emphasis on the development of the speech by doing different exercises, working on improving. You guys have done more speeches than most people by their sophomore year, but now we need to start to improve those to bring those speaking skills up a notch. Okay, so that's the basic overview of what you are doing. So we've gone through brain anatomy, we've gone through synapses. Again, please don't feel like you can't watch those videos again. You need to be the expert, okay, on what you are doing. We watch videos on the teenage brain versus the adult brain. It covered a lot. The videos covered a lot of the differences, but it did not get into specifics. So this is where you will be getting into the specifics if there's information on this about how a disorder or a drug or a medication may differ and its influence may differ on the teenage brain versus the adult brain. What I showed you was some general differences. You want to try to get into specific differences. Okay, and then part 4. So here you go. Here's another list. Okay, and again, you can just read this. You're going to choose your drug, your disorder, find a topic that relates to you. So no one should be doing Alzheimer's because Alzheimer's at your age doesn't influence you. Now, if I was doing this, then since I'm getting closer to that age where it may occur, that would be fair for me. Okay, but for you guys, you need to do your own information. How many references do you need? You need as many references as you need to answer these questions accurately. Okay, to answer these questions accurately. I have a background in this area, so I know what kind of information is out there. So as long as you do a good general search, you should be able to find everything that's out there on a disorder or drug or so on. Also, one of your slides that doesn't count towards 5 to 10 should be a list of references for the information that you are collecting. So I need to know where you are finding it from. I need to know where you are finding it from. So again, that would make this anywhere from 6 to 11 slides. Then your last slide should be a list of references. Okay, so you're going to do a digital slideshow. I will be grading that. Okay, I will be grading that. And I will be using this rubric for that. Okay, so content depth, that's going to carry a lot of weight on this. Okay, is your content accurate? Is it informative? Does it contain everything that I've talked about in terms of brain parts, synapses, teenage brain versus adult brain? Does it contain the information that answers those questions about synapses, brain parts, and teenage versus adult brain? And again, please, if you have questions about the science, I talked about brain parts, but I didn't talk about all of them. The video would have been 100 minutes long. I didn't talk about every single thing about a synapse. I did cover most of the big stuff there. But if you have questions, please let me know. Or please, if you find a brain part and you don't know what it is, the first thing you should do is Google it. By Googling a brain part, it's going to give you information on what its function is. Okay, so use what you have in front of you and what you have access to. So content is going to play a key role in this. Okay. And then do you cover adult versus teenage brain? If you're doing something and there's not a lot of research on the differences between them, then use your information that you know about the difference between a teenage and adult brain and speculate about what you think the differences may be. Okay. For most of these disorders and most of the medications and drugs, we do know the differences, though, between the adult brain and the teenage brain. Um, through explanation of current treatments, disorders, therapeutic uses, this part of the rubric is going to depend on what you've chosen. If you've chosen a disorder, then you're going to talk about treatments. If you're talking about a specific drug, then you need to talk about the risks of drugs. Now, if you're talking about certain drugs and you're going to look at treatments for addiction to those drugs, then that would fit into this category. So this category here is going to be dependent on what your topic is. Okay, so again, if it's a disorder and you're looking at treatments and you're looking at drugs for those treatments, I will tell you that there probably is no drug that doesn't have side effects. All drugs have side effects. Sometimes the side effects of drugs are worse than dealing with the benefit of the treatment. So you can also talk about that. You can talk about side effects of the drugs. So again, this section will be dependent on what you are covering. Again, if you're not sure, then talk to me, talk to Bodhi. Okay, see if that's doing. If I'm not there that day, then you can send me an email. Organization and clarity basically is your slideshow clear? Does it follow? And you have to think about, you're going to be doing a speech on this. So does the order of the Google Slides, does it go in a nice organized fashion that goes along with the way that you're going to speak about it? Okay, so you may be moving things around. Initially, you may just do a rough draft where you're collecting information and putting it on Google Slides. But you then may have to think about, okay, does this follow in a nice, concise, orderly fashion? And you may have to move things around, okay? Since you're doing a speech with this, make sure you have titles on your Google Slides. Make sure the transitions from slide to slide make sense. Okay, so that is what I'll be looking for when you do that. This partial grade 2 will also be dealt with in your speech. Okay, the speech rubric, and I do apologize, it goes in a different order. Um, the other one goes from, just so you're paying attention to this, goes from, let me look at it up here, goes from high to low. The speech rubric goes in the opposite direction. When I put the speech rubric together, I did not notice that. So just, it makes sense if you read the explanations, but it goes from low to high. Okay, content accuracy. If you do well in your Google slideshow, does well for your grade, then this should be not a problem. Okay, should not be a big deal with your speech. Again, though, look at, does the Google Slides go in a nice, precise, concise order, an orderly fashion in terms of how you're going to talk about it. Okay, organization, the speech lacks a clear structure versus exceptionally well organized with a strong introduction, body, and conclusion. The introduction can be your first slide. So when you're developing your slides, your first one can be your introduction. You are not, our goal here is that you're not going to be reading off the slides. So you're going to be using note cards. So well organized. I don't want to see a Google slide that has 1,000 words on it. So you can summarize in your slide and then you can go more in detail in your speech. So you don't want your slides to have so much material that when you do your presentation, you can't read it. You're not going to, we're really, really going to work on not reading directly off your slides. You can look at your slides as you're presenting, but we don't want you reading directly off them. So again, this comes back to, do your slides go in an organized fashion? Oops, wrong way. Okay, clarity. The speech is exceptionally clear with excellent articulation throughout. So can we understand you? Okay, are you verbalizing? We're going to get into some of this. You're probably going to video yourself once working on clarity. Okay, working on clarity. Eye contact. We've talked about this, but we haven't demanded that you do this. Now we're going to ask that you improve your eye contact with your audience, that you are looking at your audience as much as you are looking at your note cards, if not more. You can do this in several ways. You can use your Google Slides, as long as you're not reading directly off them, to be looking up, but not looking at the slide all the time. So we're going to work on you making more eye contact with your audience. I'm not expecting that you have to look up the whole time. No one does that. I don't do that when I teach. No one does that. But you need to be connecting more with your audience. Okay. If you're ever going to present something to a group and you're trying to convince them of something, one way to do that is to make more contact with them. Okay, the pacing of your speech. Are you going too fast, too slow? This takes a lot of practice, and we're not expecting you to be absolutely perfect with this. The reality is, when you get up in front and do this for real, you're going to talk faster. Okay, you're going to talk faster. So we're just going to work on some pacing things by doing things like taking time to change the slide. That slows you down. Okay, so there are things you can do, and we'll give you some helpful hints on that. But trying to pace what you are saying. Okay. Engagement. Is the speech captivates the audience? Dynamic engagement throughout. So this kind of connects everything together. Are you making eye contact with them? Are they looking at the slide because it's interesting? Right? How are you speaking in terms of inflection of voice and so on? So is the audience engaged in the topic? Use of visual aids. This is your Google Slides, but if you want to bring something else in, if you want to use a brain model, if you want to use some type of model of a neuron or something else that you have, or I can supply with you, then do you do that well? So the focus here, use of visual aids will not be a ton of the grade. Engagement, pacing, eye contact, and clarity. All right, in organization, that's going to be the main emphasis when it comes to the speech. So we are going to spend some time with you. Okay, you're going to practice. We're going to give you some ways to practice. We're going to give you some exercises to work on so that you can improve this. I will tell you that if you are good at this during high school, that you will be way ahead of the game in terms of employment, in terms of moving farther into a career. This will make a big difference. This will also help with your interviewing skills as we go through this. Okay, so you'll notice half your grade is speaking, the speech, and half the grade is content of your Google Slides. Okay. All right. So again, come back and watch this if you need to. If you have questions, again, if I'm gone, you can email me. But always remember, you have those videos to watch. You have Google at your disposal. Okay, so you have lots of access to the information that you need. All right. I am signing off, and I will hopefully see you soon.